Good morning and welcome to Onward in Love and Caregiving. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of GJP International, Greg Johnson Partnerships International. And here in New York, I have the great privilege of serving as the chief advisor to the CEO of Emblem Health for family caregiving. And yes, you can tell this is a special edition program. Whenever we see Jean, we know that we have a very, very special program coming up today as we talk about family caregiving, faith, and spirituality. I'm always so thrilled to be able to introduce you to some people whom you've met because I've talked about them on other programs, but to have the opportunity of meeting them today. And Jean, we're so grateful for all of the beautiful creative direction that you have given. You're the one who came up with the idea of doing these special programs, and they began while you were still in Indonesia. And now, can you believe it? It's 5 months you're in New York.
Well, Greg, so it's nice to have another special editions with special guests. And time really flies. Now it's the last week of Friday in the month of July, and it's already just like the summertime in New York, which you mentioned that, yeah, I kind of feel that back home again in Indonesia, where you can feel like the weather that I get used to. But again, it's more towards like it's time for reflections. It's mid of the year, and we begin to have some period of time where we try to have some kind of sitting in our heart, and that's related with the topic that will be shared with our special guest, because recently she had the great event, which you are part of it, and we will talk about that later with our special guest. But before that, we will introduce who is our special guest for this morning.
Please, you've got a photo there. I think you've been doing some of your wonderful creative artwork. Let's begin that way. There you go. You're going to shift.
Yes.
The screen. Yes. There we go. All this technology, I just marvel at it. There.
Okay. Oh, so this is our special guest, Marcy Newman. So, without any more introductions, Marcy is the energy specialist and intuitive counselor and coach, spiritual minister, and certified hypnotherapist. And she is also the published author, creator of award-winning manifestation products, TV, and host. And this is the most important part, founder and director of the Self-Love University.com. I believe that she will explain that one later in our talk this morning. Also, the event that conducted on July 7th, it's called the Global Forgiveness Day. There are excellent and outstanding speaker lineup, which is you are one of them. So it's a privilege for you and also for all of the participants to join this special event. And related with this forgiveness, Marcy will share her like special words that she's always speaking. That the key of everything is forgiveness. So
it is indeed, and thank you. That's a wonderful, wonderful introduction to a very special and wonderful lady. So let's invite her to come and join us. Marcy, there she is.
Hello, Greg. Hello, Jean. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. It's such an honor and a pleasure. And of course, I'm thrilled that we'll be talking about one of my very favorite subjects. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for joining us. And thank you, Jean. We'll see you a little bit later.
Yes, and have fun.
Thank you. Well, we always do. It seems like old times, the two of us looking at each other. What a blessing it is.
So true.
But now, Marcy, let's begin by sharing with the audience. Marcy, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself and take it away on that.
Thank you. So, where to begin? Well, I think probably the best place to begin is really back in the early 70s, actually, very early 70s, where I was a graduate nurse. And the same year, I was ordained as a spiritualist minister. Now, at the time, those were very unusual credentials to have, my RN and my Reverend. So it was interesting in how people responded to me, because in my work as a registered nurse, I was working with post-open heart and neurosurgical patients. Now, what are we talking about? The heart and the head. And so on this very specialized floor, being a charge nurse, I became very much aware at how my training as a spiritualist minister was so essential in what I was able to offer my patients in my nursing. And of course, part of that was, number one, my, solid belief in everlasting life, but also in the fact that, as opposed to just looking at healing from a conventional medical perspective, we needed also to integrate metaphysics in that healing. And so that realization and the awe of how Spirit had prepared me for this was really the beginning of my incredible opportunities to pioneer this field. And so it opened doors for me that were not open to my colleagues. And as such, I found myself doing all kinds of things that were part of nursing and part of delivering the message of healing, but also part of educating the community in that we are not just physical beings, and we have these components that need to be in sync. The body, mind, spirit, right, need to be in alignment. And this really became the forefront with everything that I did. And I found that I was being asked to create programs for hospice, I worked with some brain injured adults in the Long Island Brain Injury Association. I worked with medical students. I worked with initiating programs in so many different aspects of life. Even the conventional hospital system, I created programs for them to bring the community in and to start to recognize that we have, number one, I think, a responsibility, right, to understand what needs to be addressed when we are in the position, as we have been so blessed to do with working with people, but also in making certain that what we have been privy to, this information and how it heals the heart, is really what we're meant to be sharing. And so my entire professional career has been as a liaison between those two worlds. My personal life, of course, has evolved as I have evolved, in my professional life, and vice versa. So it has grown in tandem. And I found that there were beliefs, for instance, that I had as a young girl, as a young woman, that really were no longer serving me. And they had kept me very confined and not really capable of teaching what I came here to teach. And so what's been so interesting to me, and I'm certain with you and all of our audience, is how Spirit, how the universe just presents us with these opportunities in a very spotlighted way for us to continually let go of the things that are keeping us separate from being happy and healthy and whole. And so that's really my story. I could give you a trillion stories about how that has happened and how I've been led step by step to be where I am today. But in truth, there's so much of that that is almost irrelevant at this point. What's relevant at this point is you and I being here on this screen, talking about this incredibly important subject, and us being so attuned to each other that we can bring it to the next level, which is where it's being called to go.
Precisely. And I'm just sitting here with what I call God bumps, because as I've known you, I've been privileged to be on your shows. I've talked with you on many occasions, but that there were parts of what you've just shared that I wasn't aware of the chronology. And I felt like I was in many respects talking to myself, because the divine gave me the opportunities. I mean, I was this musician in the same period of time. I came out to New York to do my graduate work. It was a time of the Vietnam War. And I mean, there were just so many things that were coming together, and I was making decisions based upon my own inner feeling long before I could really put even names to it. And then the gift of being able, feeling always called to ministry. And yet, because of being a gay man in the 70s, I knew that wasn't going to be an open door. It was going to take about another 40 years for that to totally happen. But the gift was that we were being led through that whole thing. In my particular case, I traveled the world with my late husband, meeting many of God's children, which became the avenue for doing the caregiving work that I'm blessed to do. And little did I, although I have been greatly privileged, as you know, to have served at the Marble Collegiate Church here in New York, I knew that ministry within the traditional setting wasn't really where we needed to be going. I see Jean has popped in.
Yes, because I get the note from Marcy. Is everything okay?
Our screen kept freezing, and I didn't know if the audio was continuing or not, but I think it was. So you might have to just edit this. So I'll let you know if it happens again. Okay.
All right. Well, why don't you just stay on with us, Mr. Professor? But, you know, for me,
wait. His name says Donnie.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, I love it. We'll get that corrected. But the lovely gift has been, I ended up in the middle of a health insurance company in New York City doing family caregiving. And that organization, in its earliest stages, one of the first guest speakers we ever had, and I know you know this name, he's no longer with us, but Herbert Benson from the Mind Body Institute. So it was just leading onward. And then I was, of course, to be blessed to come to know Marian Gambardella and her wonderful group from the metaphysical world. And many of the theological questions that I wasn't so comfortable, it all began to open up as I began to be comfortable asking questions and taking the longest journey of my life from the head to the heart. Now, you have formed, you refer to yourself as the heart shift coach, and I love it. So, and you have established, tell us a little bit about the university. People would be interested to know that, and tell them how they might be able to find that.
Okay. Well, first off, it's selfloveuniversity.com. And it is just now being expanded, and we'll be inviting faculty in, very specialized courses and classes, books, etc. Everything that I do is really focused on supporting people in helping them to remember who they are. And in that process, to love themselves as the divine beings that they are. Once we make that enormous jump, right, from being mere humans into our appreciating and being able to accept our divinity, what happens is that we can then start also to access the gifts that we have as divine beings. But as you said, Greg, that journey from your head to your heart is a doozy, right? Because we are so accustomed to being in our head all the time. We are programmed, conditioned from very early childhood on to actually put aside our feelings, put aside our heart, which of course is where all the guidance and the true messaging that comes from our higher self to our human self is coming through. And so once we're closed off to that heart, well, I mean, for lack of a better term, I mean, we're just sort of like fledgling little animals, right? We can't really function the way we're meant to function. So Self-Love University is dedicated to helping people to remember who they are and to love themselves for who they are. And of course, to support their journey in whatever way is needed by them, because it's all different for each and every one of us. Our journey is very different. And so this understanding, I think, about how essential self-love really is, started to come to me actually when I was working still as a nurse in that post-open heart and neurosurgical field. What would happen was I started out working on the night shift, and the night shift, I soon realized, gave me the opportunity to actually spend bedside time with my patients that I wouldn't have during the scurrying around of the daytime. And it didn't take long at all before I started to have some very deep conversations with them. And then we would have patients come into other patients' rooms, and it was getting a little rowdy. So we started to meet down in the patient lounge. Well, before long, I also had patients' families coming in. And what was the subject? The subject, first off, was, who are we? Who are we really? And what do these life experiences do? What are they meant for? You know, why is one person here, you know, for that and the other like that? And what brings us together? And so this realization was that every person was asking the same questions, but reflecting back to themselves really made it so apparent to me that it needed to be addressed on a personal level. Each and every one of us must take that journey ourselves. And that journey, as I said before, is to begin to see ourselves and accept ourselves as divine beings, regardless of what it looks like in our human experience.
So perfectly said. And so I look right into the camera to all of our friends, because this program has always been about family caregiving, faith, which sometimes gets stuck up here, and spirituality. And one of the gifts of the caregiving journey, just as you've said, Marcy, is it forces us to go on into the big questions. Right. Sometimes we can be doing it with our care recipient. Sometimes the care recipient isn't in a place where you can communicate, but you're being asked the questions for your own journey. And again and again.
That's right.
People will come after a caregiving experience and say, I went into it thinking I was really helping whomever. The truth is, it led me to meet me. Now, you well know, and I talk of it openly on our program, that for over 30 years, I've been in AA. And I use many of those traditional techniques of the 12 steps in dealing with my life has become unmanageable, and how we can go within to find that higher sense, that divine peace that we forget is there. I often talk of it as being, you know this, I often say our spiritual DNA is faith, hope, and love. And that's implanted in us. And that's what keeps calling out to the divine of creation. And we're in the middle. And sometimes there are things that can seem terribly tragic, but it's those things that waken us to that we're not just human beings. In other words, good old Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience, but rather spiritual beings locked in time and space, having a human experience. And our spiritual being gets wakened in that.
And where does the awakening happen? It happens in the heart,
Absolutely.
Not here.
Absolutely. That's
So
why
when-
it can be so startling and so frightening, because we're not used to giving
That's right.
space to the heart.
And we've also been taught not to trust the heart. And that is huge. The trust has been put in the mind, which, as we know, is intent on leading us astray. Its worst nightmare is that we remember who we are, right? Because then it loses all control.
Exactly.
So-
the ego edging God out.
That's right.
However
It's-
you define that word.
Yeah. So this coming home into the heart is again, it's really the quest that all of us are on. But if you're stuck up here, you won't even allow yourself to entertain that opportunity. And so what we do then is we just start to, with everything, right? We start to ask ourselves, well, how can I look at things differently? Number one. And number two, we remind ourselves constantly, and this takes real practice, to ask, what would the heart say? What would the heart do? What, in essence, would love say and do? And that's really what we're looking to connect with, the love that we are and the love that we are here to give and to receive.
Absolutely marvelous and so true. And you know, we keep learning on that journey. I've recently been through a situation where, and I have blessedly learned to accept and not force things, but I just could not see through a particular issue. And I was, you know, trying to second guess what other people were thinking, which of course gets you nowhere. And except to say, oh, poor me. And suddenly I thought, in a prayer time, in a meditation time that I was having yesterday, and I was thinking of you when this happened.
Yeah.
Perhaps all these people are really sending you love, Greg, and they're very aware that you're having trouble with the hip and walking. And so they're blessing you with time to care for you.
Mm.
Care for me? I only talk about that. And I thought, yes. And I couldn't wait till you were on the show so that I might say that, because I can't tell you how my whole day changed, and the night's sleep and everything.
Well, what I would say, Greg, is that you had a heart shift.
I did, and a huge one. And as you and I were saying earlier, all you need to do is pick a guest, pick a topic, and heaven allows us to experience it
Yeah,
in some way. I've never seen that not to happen. If I'm talking
that's true.
of forgiveness, if I'm talking about fear, if I'm talking, whatever the topic might be, the week while I'm picking notes and making notes and remembering things and things coming to my heart that, oh, yes, I must do that. I'll also have a new experience on that. That will take me to a new level. And I'm so grateful for it. But I can also be just as human as anybody else and say, oh, no, not again. and it's a new level.
Yeah.
It's a new level.
And that's where I think actually forgiveness comes in, because forgiveness is really that opportunity, Greg, to let go of whatever has been blocking us.
That's right.
From being connected to our wholeness. That's all forgiveness is. You know, we have all this other stuff tied up because there's so much emotion, you know, involved in things that need forgiveness. And so many misunderstandings and misconceptions and perceptions and all of that. And where forgiveness is really so valuable is that it gives us, again, the reminder, number one, who we are. And number two, in that moment that we start to say something as simple as, how can I see this differently? In that moment, just as you said, pick a topic and the universe starts to supply all of this evidence and information. The same thing happens, because what you've done in something so simple, how can I see this differently, is that you've pried open this little crack in that wall where you had been imprisoning yourself, and the universe, all that loves you, starts to worm its way through and says, oh, well, try this on for size, or try that on. Can you see it like this? Can you see it like that? So we get immediate answers. And from my perspective, here's also what happens and what's so valuable. We go from this place of being stuck in these false beliefs that we must keep ourselves separate, that we have to keep ourselves behind a wall and protected. We go from there into, once again, like putting our toe in the water and saying, oh, look, I can be safe here. I can be safe there. And what happens then is, again, the universe comes back with a whole new wave of evidence. Yes, you are safe. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do that. And look at all this love that's waiting for you.
Totally. Well, I just hope that people who are listening to us today know that I've already had a private session just on air, and that's what's so wonderful. I love it, and it's the sort of thing that you just do again and again. Now, I want to take just a moment, before time flies with the two of us. We've just concluded, by your brilliant leadership, the Global Forgiveness Day. That was utterly powerful. Give us just a little background, if you would, on how you came about. And many in our audience have participated in it, knowing that there were 11, wasn't it, speakers?
11 speakers.
11 speakers. And it went for the entire day. And it's available. And Marcy will tell you exactly how to get a full copy from the master. So talk to us about that.
That's right. So forgiveness, well, as you know, Greg, we teach what we need to learn, right?
Absolutely.
So there's not a person in the world who doesn't need to learn forgiveness in a more structured way, because the truth is, very rarely have any of us been taught how to forgive as children. We're taught to forgive and have been, raised to have the fear of hell if we don't forgive, but nobody really says how to forgive. So I, of course, have had many incidences in my life and experiences and where I needed to forgive someone or something. But as I evolved, what was more evident to me in every single one of those situations was, at the core of it, was something that I needed to forgive myself for. Always. And so I started to like pull this apart more, and I looked at everything that I was trying to forgive, and of course had experienced the ego coming in and saying, "What are you, crazy? You can't forgive that, that's unforgivable," and those conversations that go on. Or the people who think that they're doing you a favor and saying, "Well, remember what happened last time. Do you really want to go there?" So we keep perpetuating this awful cycle of energy being accumulated that's been unforgiven. And again, as I started to really pull these things apart, what I discovered was, at the base of every single issue was, in some way, how I had betrayed myself, how I had separated myself from my divine being that has a whole different criteria for my life than I was exercising. Okay. And I started to recognize in every single situation how self-love and forgiveness is this tapestry that creates this incredible image that is able to reflect back to us our divinity so clearly, every single thread. And so as I journeyed more into self-love, forgiveness became more and more important. As I journeyed through forgiveness, my self-love was elevated. So this had been going on for a number of years, and I decided that I really needed to put my focus there, because I felt that that was two actually huge areas, although it's only one, where people were filled with misunderstandings. And so imagine my delight to realize that there was a Global Forgiveness Day.
Yeah.
And so year after year, and I've been doing this now for a number of years, as Global Forgiveness Day comes about, I create another opportunity for us to teach it in a different way. So I've done all kinds of things. I've collected original quotes from people, published it in a book. I've had contests. I've done this, I've done that. Because to me, the most important thing is that we keep this in the forefront of our consciousness so that we can address things as they come up. And I think you'll agree with me, Greg, it's a 24/7 job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is not just about those big events where you had a fight with somebody, or somebody disrespected you, or this, or you were traumatized by something. Oh no. This journey of forgiveness is something that is actively engaged as you start to live in your heart, because you begin to realize energetically that the energy that gets stuck is constantly asking for light. It's constantly asking for love. And so we are the givers. And we give the light, we give the love, so that that energy can then, become part of the creative process and create the life that we want to live. So it takes diligence and it takes commitment, but the rewards are second to none, because the reward of forgiveness and loving yourselves as a divine being is complete freedom.
Absolutely. And that became very apparent by the diversity of the persons coming at the topic. I I have very much enjoyed listening to the diverse ways in which each of us made a contribution, we hope, to that bigger subject. But and that to me is what it was. I love the phrase of make the circle wider. We don't have to eliminate things. They've been part of our life. That's not where included. It was part of the journey.
That's right.
But we're not stuck in that spot.
Yep.
And that is where forgiveness becomes such an incredible, incredible opportunity. And I also love it from the point of view, you know this, of course, you've said it in many ways yourself, but I'm always feel blessed when someone will say to me, and it's usually in a very sad or difficult moment, my heart is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, let's give thanks that your heart is broken open to something new. It's a painful experience. And it's the same as I am always so grateful when someone in the addiction world says, I've hit rock bottom. And I say, well, may you find that the rock at the bottom is the divine waiting to support you.
Mm.
But those are gifts that only come with a long, long journey. And forgiving ourselves, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? No. This is the precious moment. This is the moment when all those pieces are going to be coming together so that you can go to the universe is sending you beyond to something greater. And what a glorious way to live, even in the most difficult of moments. And that's one of the things that I always pray, that the Friday morning broadcast, because it's sort of a unique program on caregiving that we're doing, family caregiving, faith and spirituality. And I really began it as a result of projects that I had done in Southeast Asia, where people were coming. I had known the ASEAN countries, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. In fact, I was on the tourism board 50 years ago when it was founded. So I've been involved in the differences and the uniquenesses of the countries. But at the same time, when I got involved in the caregiving work, I began inviting people whom I knew were doing caregiving to my home in Bali, and they would come. And I mean, everyone wants to go on vacation in Bali, so that was very helpful. And we began having conversations. And at first I did it country by country, just to keep the focus on the traditions and also for language issues, because I needed to have people helping us to translate. But then we began bringing in others together, and that's where it all began. And people in the Southeast Asian countries are very comfortable in talking about, far more than they are here in America, of how their faith journeys and their spirituality influence their decision making. Now, in America, it does the same thing, it's just they don't talk about it. Or they have been taught so much that's really needs a bit of cleaning and broadening. But we take people just where they are. But that's what began this program, because this group of people said to me, how can we continue to dialogue? And of course, being limited in technology, I said, oh, send me an email. I thought that was very with it. Well, then one of my staff in Bali said to me, well, you could do Facebook Live. He said, it's only on and off and we can rehearse. So we rehearsed, but then it's grown. And then more and more, I found people wanting to talk about that here in America and in the Western world far more, because we have a lovely following out of Europe as well. So I'm just so pleased and thrilled to hear what you're sharing with us today. That's one of the great gifts of having guests come and share with us, is that because I know and love you and love the people that we invite, we don't script it. We just allow spirit to lead us and to share in our journeys, as you've shared in yours, I've shared in mine. we hope that then someone else will say, wait a minute, I was thinking that. Now I need to go broaden my mind even more. And that's exciting, and that's wonderful. Now, speaking of that, before I need to leave you, you and I could talk on and on. I want you to let people know, if there are some very special things coming up that you want people to be aware of. Also, if they would like to have the full set of the tapes from the Global Forgiveness Day, and then how they might be in touch with you. What is the best email, Facebook, whatever? You take it away. You're far more technological than I. You'll repost it afterwards.
Thank you. So first off, yes, please, it is my greatest pleasure to share with you every single recording from our Global Forgiveness Day. The name of that event was Forgive, Live, and Be Free. And that really is the purpose of all of us coming together as speakers. As you said, Greg, to give people the opportunity to see that it arises in every aspect of life. It's not just this one way, and that we all experience it in some way. So I also want to tell you that every single speaker offered a free gift. So it's an additional gift for you that will help to take you deeper into your journeying within yourself. And of course, to find more love for yourself and forgiveness. So that's invaluable. And all you need to do is email me at Marcy, MARCY, at heartshiftcoach.com. And I'm sure we'll have that information.
We'll put it up again.
Mm-hmm. And in the subject line, just put forgive. All right, I'll know exactly what you need. And so I'm very happy to send you that. Secondly, please join me at selfloveuniversity.com. We're creating this incredible free library there. And also there are some free, mini courses, all kinds of things that are accessible to you already, and we'll just continue to build and build and build. And again, that's selfloveuniversity.com. And let's see what else. On Facebook, you can find me as the Heart Shift Coach or Marcy Newman. And I have a wonderful self-love and heart shifts private group there. And every day we are talking about self-love and heart shifts. And this is really important work. And let's see what else. I have another group called the High Vibe Tribe. You're welcome to join. It's where we are really coming together to inspire each other and to support each other in this work, because each of us has something that we are meant to gift to this world. And at this time, as we can see, we all need to be on board.
Totally. And
right?
This program will be on the Hive Tribe.
Yes, it will. The High Vibe Tribe. And then let's see what else. MarcyNewman.com, HeartShiftCoach.com. Yep, there's just so much waiting for you. And I do whatever I can. You just let me know what your interest is or what you feel you need support with, and I'll create it. That's my greatest joy, my honor, and my pleasure.
You are incredible, my dear. Thank you. Now, Gene, are you going to come back and join us? There he is. We have a different name. There you are.
I need to change my name.
Oh, Gene, we're so glad to have Marcy with us. Thank you so much. And Gene, I'm going to ask you to be sure, and when we put the broadcast up finally, to do all of those many links, because Marcy is a woman whom you can contact.
Yes, you can. And yes, I want you to.
of them the link and also the email address. And I think Marcy also has a great Instagram page, which we follow.
Oh, I do.
Yes.
That's right. Instagram as well. Yes. And yeah, please join me anywhere that you hang out. Join me. And if I'm not there, invite me. I want to know about
We will.
you. I want to know what's important to you, what you share, because we're all here together. We are completely not just in this space of this world, but we're here in purpose together.
That's right.
So yeah, reach out to me
Ah,
and I'll reach out to you.
absolutely. And we reach out sending you endless love. Thank you for being with us. And folks, thank you for joining us from all over the world. It's one of the fun parts of this particular broadcast because it takes about 24 hours to get it to everybody. It may be 8 o'clock in the morning in New York, but people have already gone to bed back in Asia.
Of
So
course.
it's wonderful for us to have this opportunity. We thank you. Thank you, Jean, for always coming up with these wonderful ideas and being our creative director. And as always, we say onward in love and caregiving.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
God bless, and we'll see you real soon. Thank you.